Our last video on the ES did so well, I figured why not go over every detail we've ever done on the ES lineup. Hi, I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. And today I'm going to show you the 2024 ES350 all-wheel drive. But before I get into it, make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. Okay, getting right into it, the ES250 is very similar to the ES350, except for one major component. What that component is what's under the hood. Under the hood, we have a 4-cylinder, 200 horsepower engine versus the 350, which has a 300 horsepower front-wheel drive engine, and the 250 is an all-wheel drive. Underneath here, we have lots of gadgets and things like that. I like that Lexus, lately anyway, have put a really nice Lexus emblem under here on that top of the valve cover. In fact, it's as nice as the ones that you see on the outside of the car. So even though not a lot of people are gonna see it, it's still in there and looking beautifully. As I mentioned, this engine is around the 200 horsepower mark, but you get all-wheel drive with it. And even price point, it's pretty much, package for package, the exact same as the entry-level ES350s with the same features. And Lexus wanted to market it as you could either choose the V6 front-wheel drive or go for the 4-cylinder and get all-wheel drive, both for the same price. So with that said, let's look at the rest of it. So the ES250 comes with two packages, one being the standard package, which is custom sold to order only. That's like the base model. And then there's this one, which is the premium, which in my opinion is well worth the money. On the front end, we have that luxury style grille, so it's not the really aggressive F-Sport, but there is some really nice sort of angles and mathematician type design to it with, little Lexus emblems hidden all over the place. We have actual chrome sort of veering off around it, and the bottom is more like a textured chrome and the top is more like a shiny chrome, so that should hold up a little bit better as well. We have the new style daytime running light with some really nice angles sort of beside and into this little crevice here. The only thing I don't remember what that top light is for. That might be a Corning lamp or something like that. I have to check that out later. Other than that, we have the frosted daytime running light and bi-LED headlights. Now this color is the most ES color that you could say, and it is moonbeam beige metallic. Keyword is beige. And sort of if you think of any ES from the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of them were the beige on beige, and they sold like hotcakes. In fact, anytime we ever get a color combination like this in, it sells very quickly. So that's why we have this one. Anyway, getting back to the hood, there is this really nice body line that sort of accentuates from the top of that grille into the hood. And then we have a vision line sort of wrapping around the hood. So looking at the side profile, there isn't a ton to write home about, but what is here is pretty nice. So we have a 17-inch wheel instead of the 18-inch wheel that we're seeing in some of the higher packages. And actually, because of that bigger sidewall, it does ride very, very smooth, which is the ES has always been known for. From there, we have some chrome outlining all of the window frames and black mirror caps, which nicely accents that B-pillar. Even as I'm standing beside it, you can see that the doors are very big and very solid. There's no tinniness at all in the ES. It has lots of insulation and things like that. And it's the classic door handles with the little dimple on it to be able to lock it and unlock it. The quarter panel in the back rear isn't super huge, but it sort of tapers off and has a little bit of airflow to it. So moving to the back of the ES250, we have a taillight that I wish Lexus did on more cars. This is like the layered taillight like we see in the LC, but instead of using mirrors and holograms and stuff like that, it's just spread out in that same design language. We still have some chrome underlining the Lexus, the older Lexus emblem, and the ES250 all-wheel drive stamped to the side there. And then underneath, you'll see there pretty much is no exhaust ports. It's all hidden up underneath, again, with that design language of current and upcoming EVs. Lexus did this in order to make it a little bit more future-proof, and rightfully so, because it's not unlike ES's to last to 400,000, 600,000, 800,000 kilometers. So there's a good chance this car is driven for the next while. Looking at the trunk, even with the ES250 all-wheel drive, you don't sacrifice much space, even with that extra powertrain underneath. You can still fit a couple golf bags in it. In fact, I could also fit in it quite easily. I wouldn't recommend this, but it would work. So sitting in the ES250, you'll see it has the Palomino interior. Now with the Moonbeam exterior, I think this is the only way it comes. I've definitely never seen it with the black interior. But it has a nice two-tone to it. We still have some dark chocolatey type accents. Even the wood grain on the steering wheel is accented very nicely to the wood grain that's sort of wrapped around the cabin, and that contrasts. It's a different color brown than the Palomino, but it contrasts quite well. Now, when this ES came out in, when it first got the big redesign in late 2018, we saw a lot of Lexus firsts in here. One of them being the armrest. So this was the first iteration of the armrest that can be opened from both passengers, and we saw this in the LS as well, the flagship. Even the volume knob has a similar sentiment where the volume itself is sort of on the upper part of the knob, and then the tuning is underneath. And the reason I really love that is instead of having to click a screen, you can really quickly change stations and have your volume right there as well. It's just a very efficient way of doing it. Also, we have a wireless charging pad that's new to the premium package, and you can just kind of place your phone there. I like that on all the wireless charging pads. They've made the perimeter a little bit bigger because cell phones keep getting bigger. So that's a very usable spot for your cell phone, especially because when you get in a car, you never know where to put your phone. And there's even this other little space up here that you can put your phone sideways as well if you're not charging it. The USB is a USB-C and the USB-A, I can't remember the name of it. And that's hidden behind this little trap door, which I think is really cool. And at least when the trapdoor comes out, it kind of goes flush. Also, the way the shifter works is really nice. How it works is you use your thumb to sort of squeeze the shifter and then put it in gear. And I find that to be one of the most ergonomic ways of doing the shifter that Lexus has. Also, I do love the new screen. It's a little bit wider and sharper than previous generations. It sits a little bit closer, and it's super easy to use, especially when you rest your hand sort of on this little ledge here. Other than that, it has the latest Lexus Safety Sense, which is great. Even the headliner is like a tanned brown. So you have black pillars, but that nice brown that ties in sort of the seats to the headliner, which is really nice. Okay, so sitting in the back seat of the ES, we have lots of room. My legs have a ton of space in front of them. The curls of my hair is just touching the roof, but my head itself actually has a decent amount of space. I could fit 2 other people in here if I needed to. We have an armrest that's actually a pretty solid armrest with some cup holders and a pass-through. Instead of actually being able to fold down the seats, you have a little pass-through. Now, in case you didn't know why Lexus has done that and other brands have done that, the best that I could get out of it is the sealing off of that trunk from the rest of the cabin. And because of that, the most quietest cars that I've been in the back seat have the pass-through instead of the ability to actually fold down those seats. It just makes it a little more airtight in here, and because of that, the sound. I did forget to mention the floating door handles on these. Another very nice ergonomic design to them, and it's one of the only ones that when you go to open, the handle itself sort of becomes your little push rod to open the actual door instead of having to use like your elbow or your wrist or something like that. So I always thought that was pretty nice. So that begs the question, it has the 4-cylinder all-wheel drive, but how does it drive? And all I can say is this, it still has the smooth, quiet ride of the ES and what made the ES so famous. In fact, when this ES got designed, we saw sales of the LS actually drop a little bit because you could get this very smooth vehicle for half the price of the LS. Now, the 4-cylinder versus the V6, that's always a big question I get asked. The 4-cylinder is slower. It's like 100 horsepower slower. And it does feel that way. I personally love the V6. I love that it's punchy. I love that it spins those front wheels. But if I needed all-wheel drive, which a lot of people where they live would prefer to have the all-wheel drive, the 4-cylinder is totally fine for this size of vehicle. In fact, I think most people in the ES market probably won't use the full 300 horsepower all the time anyway. So to sacrifice that for the 4-cylinder all-wheel drive, I think makes sense for a lot of people. However, I do think production is going to eventually stop on the ES all-wheel drive and probably eventually the ES front-wheel drive as well as we get closer to a big redesign, which we're coming up due on for sure. Over this next year, I don't know how available the ES350 all-wheel drive is going to be, but if you want a very smooth car that has all-wheel drive, this could be the one for you. So with that said, I'm Dustin Mason. Thank you for watching, and make sure you tune in for other Lexus-related videos. Please let me know in the comments what you thought of the ES350 and if there's any other cars you think I should do in the near future. Here's 5 hidden features that you might only know if you drive an ES350. But before I get into that, make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus-related content. Number 1 is what Lexus calls seat in control concept, meaning as you're driving, everything that you need to see is going to be in your line of vision. A great example of this is the Sport, Normal, and Eco mode switch. In previous models, it was down on the center console and you had to like look down to use it. But now it's up sort of by where you put your hands and you don't have to take your eyes off the road to be able to like manage that switch. Next is the engine itself. The 3.5 liter V6 that is so smooth, even when you're sitting in it, you don't feel any vibration at all. And it has so much power to those front wheels that every time you step on it, it'll surprisingly get up to speed very quickly, and it takes regular gas, so that's always a big win. The next is how solid everything is. Let me show you. Next is the interior materials. Everywhere you look in the ES350, there's different layers that the longer you drive and get used to, you notice more of them. What I mean by that is even, the matte black sort of wood trim that's on the steering wheel, but also kind of appointed on the dash and the top of the door panels. Then we have some different layers in the center, some piano black finishes, some brushed black finishes, as well as aluminum trim, some different layers of stitching, and everything you touch, including the door handles and buttons, all feel better than if they cheaped out on it, if that makes sense. So everything's kind of like aluminum or a heavy plastic or like a wood grain instead of just like a cheap plastic that, what most cars would have. Okay, my final hidden feature on the ES350, and it took me so long to even realize this existed, and that's this little trap door that's right by the gear shifter that opens up to have the USB, the USB-C, and then also the kind of like the shift override button. And then when you don't want it, it just closes right back. And actually the trap door kind of lowers and goes into the console instead of just sliding on top of it, which is cool. And then when it comes back, it sort of lifts back up. Also, that you won't find in any brochure, when they redesigned or did the refresh on the ES, instead of having the phone holder that's kind of like straight up and down, and that if you had a bigger phone or as phones started to get bigger, it became less useful, they sort of opened up this little space sort of in front of the cup holders. And that goes well with how practical this center console is anyway. We have a wireless charger here, as well as the glove box that opens up from both sides. And it's just great and super useful. So there you have it. After driving the ES350 for a number of months now, those are my 5 hidden features that I only would have noticed after spending a little bit of time with it. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of this style of video. And remember, I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and maybe come buy an ES350. Today, we're gonna do some driving impressions on the 2023 ES350. I've been able to drive this car for about a week now, so I have a lot of little impressions to go over and go over those in a little bit of finer detail. But first, make sure you hit like and subscribe to our Performance Lexus channel. Getting right into the video, one of the first things I want to talk about is actually under the hood. The ES350 is still one of the last vehicles in the lineup to have our 3.5 liter V6, and it's one of my favorite 3.5 liter V6s for a number of reasons. This one is a 300 horsepower mated to an 8-speed transmission, meaning it has lots of pep, but more impressively, it's a very, very smooth V6. Usually with a V6, it's either powerful or smooth, and with this one, it does check both of those boxes, and it takes regular gas. So even though you have that 300 horsepower, it's still not gonna cost you a ton to run it. Underneath the hood, you can actually see a lot going on here. With a lot of the Lexus models, it's fully covered by plastic. But this one, it's just the middle section that's covered over. You can still see all the condenser pipes and the intake. The battery's easily accessible, and pretty much it just looks like a regular Lexus underneath. Take a look at the styling. This particular package is the premium package. So it's technically the base that you can get in the V6 model. This is the front wheel drive, by the way. That's what the V6 means. So we have some daytime running lights here, LED headlights, along with some styling and chrome to the bottom of it. So down here, this vent isn't actually active, but I find the chrome ties in really nicely with the grille. And this is the base model grille, so it kind of has the new take on the spindle. If you wanted to get something a little bit more aggressive, you could go up to the F-Sport model, the F-Sport 1 and the F-Sport 2, or the F-Sport design. And that would give you a little bit more aggressive and some added headlights and stuff like that. Looking at the side profile, by the way, this is the caviar black paint. So there's a little bit of metallic there. The wheels themselves are a little bit smaller on the premium package, which means we have a little bit more of that, I guess you could say, sidewall. So I find on the premium package, it is a little bit smoother than the one with the bigger wheels, and that's because we have so much sidewall there. We have some beautiful chrome lining the side of the windows and tying into the mirror as well. And there is a really nice indicator on the mirror that kind of goes the full length of it. Body lines, not super aggressive, but still modern enough. We have this one body line that sort of goes all the way from the front to the back and wraps around this side. You can see when it comes to the ES that the doors are huge. So even the back doors here are a really good size. And that's because the back seat space is gigantic for being a midsize sedan. The handles are the same that we've had in the Lexus lineup for a while now. They work, they're solid. I have nothing to complain about. And sort of as we get to the rear of the car here, we still have some chrome on that back taillight that wraps around as well to tie in that black and chrome look, which is super classy and timeless. One of my favorite things is these taillights. So we have the layered sort of L design. It reminds me of sort of just a more budget-friendly version of the LC taillights, where you have those different layers and like the hologram that the LC has. And this is just like a more stamped in version of that. We have that chrome at the top here. Like I said, that with the black and chrome, it looks really, really nice. We have the older style Lexus emblem, obviously the ES350 down here, some sort of exhaust decorations integrated into the bumper. Again, it's one of the last cars in the lineup to actually show any exhaust, and that's trimmed off by just a little bit of textured black plastic. Okay, so now for the 2023 ES350's interior, there are a few little things that it took me a few days of driving to really appreciate and notice, but I do want to mention them. The first one is this center has been totally rejigged. You might remember from previous ESs is that there used to be the remote touch little mouse pad here, and the cup holders were kind of shifted forward, etc. This one, since that is gone because it's all touchscreen now, we have the cup holders in a different space and room for a wireless charging pad that can even fit a big phone like my S22 Ultra, and it doesn't move around much, and I think even if you got a bigger phone, it would still fit. One of the other things I never realized is that there is no sunglass holder at the top, but now there's this little shelf kind of in front of the cup holders that I can put my sunglasses in. At first I didn't know what that was for because it's so small, but this morning when I was driving, I was like, I need to put my sunglasses somewhere, and that is the perfect spot. We have the heated seats and cooled seat controls just above that, super easy to access, it's not in the way, and the whole interior is kind of trimmed off by this really modern matte black finish. So whether it's a matte black brushed aluminum or some matte black wood grain. We also have wood grain on the steering wheel that's matte black. And again, this is the base model. So it has all these little nuances even in the premium package, even the bigger screen, which is really, really nice. Even if you're looking at an ES350, don't be afraid of the premium package. It really gives you a lot of features that you'd have to do like a mid-package RX for, or any of the other cars like in the middle. So it is really nice that you can get that on such a good budget. Okay, so now some driving impressions of the ES350, which is where this car really impresses people, especially for the price point. So we'll just kind of go for a little drive here through beautiful Port Dalhousie in St. Catharines, Ontario. One of the first things you notice when you drive the ES is the shifter. It's very ergonomic. You sort of just use your thumb to squeeze. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. It's not like a little electronic gadget like some of the newer Lexuses. So the thing I think is important when it comes to that is the ES350 has always been known for the car that, it's kind of a joke on the internet, but it's like the car that your grandpa buys brand new, passes it down to the son, passes it down to the grandson, and it's like generations old because of they last so long and hold up so well. So because of that, I like that the interior and even the exterior isn't ultra modernized yet. And what I mean by that is if someone's gonna be driving this or passing this car down for 10 years, 15 years from now, whatever it is, it's cool that the shifter is kind of a little bit more classic instead of super, super modern. So I do like that. My dad right now drives a 2004 ES350, I think is what it was called in 2004. It's held up well, the engine still runs. We're kind of just waiting for it to die, but it might, I don't know, maybe we'll just have to replace it before it dies because we've been waiting for a little while. You'll notice even on bumpy roads, it's super, super smooth. You don't really hear the engine too much. It's just a quiet cabin. In fact, there was this little rumor when this car got redesigned in 2019 or 2018 that the engineers, especially on the hybrid model, had to actually introduce a little bit of road noise or a little bit of driving noise because the cabin was too smooth and too quiet that it actually made people uncomfortable. And you know, even though that kind of sounds like a sales gimmick, I could see it because it's super quiet in here and super smooth, and this is the V6. So on the hybrid with the less vibrations and stuff like that, it's even smoother. It's even more foreign, like it kind of feels weird. A couple other things to mention. So now that it doesn't have the touchpad, I was a little worried because I liked using the touchpad because I don't like having to like hover my finger and use a touch screen. I feel like I miss a lot of the screen, but with this one, I kind of just plant two of my fingers here on the dash and then I can press and it's kind of like a stabilizer instead of like having to hover and miss the buttons. I'm not sure if Lexus did that ledge on purpose, but it works really well for that. I've known a lot of cars that just have a floating screen. There's nowhere to anchor your fingers to be accurate with your pressing of buttons. And this one does a really good job. It's super easy. So yeah, that could be something to think about, that even though it's full touchscreen and the remote touch is gone, it's not hard to do. And it's definitely not a distraction or anything like that. We do have the drive modes sort of up here, and once I'll get into the country a little bit, I'll show you probably the biggest flaw in this car, which may surprise you. Okay, so now for the biggest flaw in the ES350, I'm just gonna come to a stop here, and we're just gonna punch it. It's the fact that it has too much power for those front wheels. So even sometimes if you're rolling and you punch it, it lights up the tires really quickly. There is an all-wheel drive option in this car, but they use the 4-cylinder engine. So I do wish Lexus could have utilized this engine in an all-wheel drive setup or had maybe some sort of limited slip differential or something to just put that power down a little bit more. But it's silly because all that's meaning is that it has a really powerful engine, which isn't a bad thing. Like I said, I just wish it wasn't such wasted power. But because of that, the engine is never really working too hard. It's very, very smooth. And that's, in my opinion, that's quite all right. Okay, but the biggest strength of the ES has always been the highway and sort of like a road trip car. It's as smooth, in my opinion, as the much more expensive LS or LC, and because of that, it makes a really great road trip car. It does have the space in the back seat, it has the space in the trunk for a good road trip car as well, and I'll sort of just demonstrate how smooth it is on the highway here. You can hear a little bit of engine noise too, which is nice. There is a little bit of engine noise, a little bit of intake noise. It's not much. I bet you if you put an exhaust on this car, it probably sounds sweet. So to activate the cruise control, it's all on the steering wheel now with your right thumb. And it has the lane centering assist and almost the latest Lexus safety system. I think this one might be like 2.5 or something. It'll keep us a really safe distance from in front of us. And there you go, super, super smooth. really good commuter as well. I will say the fully loaded Ultra Luxury is a little quieter because of it has like a sound, I can't remember the word, sound deadening, sound prevention wheel design, where there's some extra chambers so that when you hit bumps, there's no fluctuation of the pressure inside the tire, so you don't get that dudum like when you hit a bump. But this one is still pretty good because it has the bigger sidewall, so even if you hear it, you don't necessarily feel it, which is great. That lane centering assist works really well. It keeps you dead center. Also, I do have a digital readout of my speed, which I think is important in this day and age, so that works out really well. The average fuel economy on this car is usually pretty good. We had this one idling, so it's at 9.1, but I was definitely a lot lower earlier before we had it like sitting idling doing all the videos. Oh, this is like a fresh paved road, so it's super, super smooth right now, which is nice. Definitely a good car if you have to commute at all because of that regular gas, because of how smooth it is. Even lately, I had some errands to do the last couple days, and instead of taking, it was a nice sunny day, instead of taking my Supra out, I decided to take the ES just because I knew I wouldn't be tired when I got there. It just makes that driving such less of a chore, if that makes sense. And it's really good to have people in here as well because of the size of it. So there you go. That's some really good driving impressions. I hope you guys liked it. I'm still only about a week into driving this car, so I'm sure there's gonna be a little bit more sort of nuances going forward too. In 2024, is the Lexus elegant sedan still relevant? I'll show you why this one beside me might be the perfect blend of luxury and sport because of the special package it has. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus content. So of course, when talking about the ES350, I have to start with my favorite feature about this car, which is actually under the hood. The 3.5 liter naturally aspirated V6 not only has a regular gas demand, meaning you can just put regular gas in it, it also has close to 300 horsepower paired to an 8-speed transmission on a front wheel drive platform. And I know what you're thinking, that's a lot of horsepower for those front wheels, and you are absolutely right. Every time I drive an ES350, I legally light up those front tires because there's just so much power to it. Now, the average ES350 buyer isn't gonna push it as hard as this car can do, but it is always nice to have that power, especially from such a reliable power plant that's been in the Lexus lineup and the Toyota lineup for a number of years and has really proven to be reliable and super low maintenance. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the styling. The ES beside me, if you haven't guessed it yet, is the F-Sport design package in the ultrasonic blue color. Now, the cool thing about the ultrasonic blue color is the first iteration of this color was on some legendary cars like the LFA and the Lexus ISF. And now, the newest version of it is across some of the lineup. I wouldn't say all of it, but some of the sportier looking cars in the Lexus lineup. And I like when it's paired to the ES because of a few things. One is this blacked out chrome trim that sort of outlines that F-Sport grille. And that's what I always like about the F-Sport and F-Design packages is that grille just adds so much aggression to a car that could sometimes look otherwise, a little bit soft or not nearly as, exciting as something with some bold edges like that. On this front end, we do also have some accented vents on either side. And when you get up close to them, they do have a metallic paint. Instead of being like a piano black, it is more like a caviar or starlight mica type blacked out bit. And I like that because then it doesn't show scratches as much. It doesn't show watermarks as much. And same with the chrome. A totally blacked out chrome sometimes can show those things, but with this smoked look, you don't get that necessarily. We do have a single LED headlight as well as some frosted LED daytime running lights, as well as a few other little lights in there, probably for cornering and stuff like that. The blacked out grille is also sort of like a dark gray instead of a full black, and we have the classic L emblem on the front there. As we get up to the hood, there is some bold body lines that you can't really see on camera. One of them is this line that sort of goes from the edge and then kind of fades away as it gets to the front. And even this little divot sort of thing by the headlight just gives a little bit of that more aggression and really flows from that bumper into the hood. Also, we do have 4 parking sensors integrated into that grille and bumper across the front. Okay, so in terms of side profile and silhouette, I do want to point out we do have the different F-Sport logo. And what I mean by that is the F-Sport usually has a painted background where the F design has sort of all just that metal color. It really reminds me of the ISF that I reviewed a little bit ago that had titanium badges and there was no color to them at all, just, you know, raw metal. And I really like the F design for that. It reminds me of like the true F cars instead of the F Sport, which is kind of ironic because it is at a lower price point. Then we have this piano black 19-inch wheel and just a regular brake setup behind it. However, behind that is the standard suspension setup for the ES. And why I pause so much for theatrical effect is because usually an F-Sport has more of a sporty suspension. So that's one of the reasons why this F design is a really nice blend, because it has that soft cushion ride of an ES, but those aggressive styling of the S-Sport version. Then over to the rest. So the ES as a platform has a really wide and low sort of just platform and body lines. And you can see I'm 6'1". I tower over that C pillar and B pillar, and it's all trimmed off by a little bit of chrome and a blacked out mirror cap, the top of the mirror cap, and some chrome there as well. This one in particular, I think would look really cool with some tints, but right now it just has the factory glass. So you can just imagine if those windows were blacked out, there'd be a really nice black and blue sort of contrast. The ES being a midsize has a really solid door. In fact, when I compared this to the Camry, that was one of the differences. Actually, that back door is really solid. That was one of the differences between the Camry and the S when I reviewed them together. And it's all about those little details that Lexus did to sort of set this vehicle apart from its Toyota cousin. And that kind of passes on even with things like the gaps between body panels, the quality of the paint, the extra insulation on the interior. All of that makes a big difference. It does still have the classic door handle design instead of the new E-latch system. I love the new E-latch system, but some people do like a classic handle, and if so, the ES will still have that for the time being as well. Let's look at the body line. So we have this one edge that sort of goes front to back and sort of asymmetrically lines up with those handles. And then we have that roof line that flows almost like a fastback or like 4-door coupes kind of thing, which is very different from previous generations of the ES. And another reason why some of these were actually hard to tell apart in the wild versus the much bigger sibling LS. A good friend once told me that the back of a car is the most important because that's where everybody's gonna see when they're driving behind you. And the ES350 really does surprise in that sense. One being the taillights. And if you don't know already, these taillights are sort of a homage towards the LC500 taillights, where the LC uses a series of mirrors and illusions to create a similar afterburner effect, where the ES350 just has them stationary. And that's one of the only cars that we have in the lineup with this combination light design. We also have this F-Sport spoiler at the top that looks very organic and natural and doesn't look out of place or anything like that. The classic Lexus emblem, it is time to update that on this car, but that's okay. Then we have some more smoked chrome and of course the ES350 logo in the bottom corner. As we get a little lower, we'll see a painted black, actually it's more like that charcoal gray that we saw in the front, rear diffuser and some exhausts that are integrated into the rear bumper. That's becoming very rare in the automotive industry for 2024 and 2025 model years, is actually having exhaust ports because everything's becoming EV and hybrid. And we're seeing manufacturers tuck those in up under the bumper so that those cars in the future don't look super out of place. But I like seeing an exhaust, and I like seeing integrated exhausts that give you that sort of, sporty dual exhaust look. And the ES does a really good job of that. Also, while we're back here, I should mention there is 3 anchors on top of the seats for child seats. This is something that, since I don't have any kids, I forget to mention sometimes. But to the parents out there, this could still be a very practical mid-size family car for you. And because of that, and we don't have any tint here so you can actually see it, we do have 1, 2, and 3 places to be able to top anchor those child seats of yours, which I personally don't know how to do, but maybe you watching do. into the trunk. And this is where having a front wheel drive mid-size car has some benefits. One being size. It is absolutely massive back here. I can easily fit back there, even with another person, even though probably not, willing to do that. A couple sets of golf bags with carts for sure. The only thing is it doesn't have fold down rear seats. And I hear this all the time on my comment section saying, why doesn't the ES have folding rear seats? And the answer is this: cars that don't have folding rear seats actually have a quieter cabin, because so much of the road noise actually comes from the back of the car in the trunk, in that big empty echoey cavern that we put all of our stuff in. So cars that have the folding seats tend to have just a little bit more road noise. And the ES doesn't have that. Instead, there is a tiny pass-through that you can put your skis and 2x4s through if you need to, but for the most part, you have enough space back here for everything else. And there's even a secret feature that I'm obsessed with this year, because I went 8 years of being in the automotive industry, 10 years total of being involved with automotive, without knowing that off to the side of this car and most trunks, you can remove this little cover and reach inside. And after you feel around awkwardly a little bit, you'll find it's almost like a little hoop that you're gonna stick your finger through, and when you pull it, it can pop your gas cap. And it takes regular gas, don't forget. But you can pop your gas cap in case it's frozen or in case your battery is dead, because everything is electronic nowadays, and it's an override. I mean, if we're splitting hairs, there's also another manual little hook here in case you are trapped in the trunk with another person, or if you're trying to scare your friends. Glow in the dark, that's been around forever and ever, and it's not much to write home about, but I figured I'd point it out. And also, there is a little handle here. So that's one of my things, is like, whenever I'm in a sedan and it doesn't have the power trunk, I always put my greasy pizza fingers on the paint on that rear trunk lid. But instead, you can actually just reach here with this little handle and hook. And if you're driving a ultrasonic blue ES or even a black ES, you should probably do that so you don't scratch it. Okay, so my videographer Bhaskar just called me out saying I can't shut the trunk using the handle that I was so obsessed about, and here I am to prove to you wrong. Here we go. There it is, it's shut. It's a little awkward, but it's better than scratching your paint. Okay, getting into the ES, here's the second hack about this F-Design package, and that is the seats. So usually on the ES, you have to choose between F-Sport or luxury and executive, suspension, seat, styling, etc. But on this one, even though it has that sporty exterior with the wheels, the grille, everything, the seats themselves are the luxury and executive style seats. So what I mean by that is, instead of those big bolsters that some people love and some people hate, this one is more of like sitting on your couch, where the cushion is very soft, the posture is right, there's not big bolsters, and the bolsters that are here are also really soft and not that stiff. And overall, the comfort inside the cabin is amazing, especially for the price point. In this one, we have a blacked out interior, and all of the trim is quite modern. So the wood grain that you see throughout the cabin is all like an open pore, blacked out wood look. And to me, that's like a really modern, timeless take on the classic wood grain. And because it's blacked out, it's not too overpowering. And even more importantly, that old wood grain that we saw in a lot of old Lexuses, over time, it would always show fingerprints and scratches. And I don't think this open pore stuff is gonna do that. On the doors, we have a floating door handle design with some memory seats for your mirrors and your seats. I always recommend setting that up as soon as you get your car and sit in. Do those mirrors, do the memory seats, do the steering wheel, and then that wood grain is at the top. That wraps around to the top of the dash. And even on the other accents, we have like a blacked out brushed metallic look. Again, very modern, not very overpowering. If you didn't point it out, you probably wouldn't even notice it. And we still have this really sharp samurai sword type line across the dash. I do think this used to be aluminum, but I think it's plastic now. Then in the center, we have my favorite shifter, which is the one you just squeeze your thumb, and it's just very ergonomic, and it's pretty much perfectly level with the armrest. And speaking of the armrest, this was one of the first vehicles we saw the double-sided magic illusion of a center armrest glove box. And it's really handy because you can open it from both sides, doesn't matter who you are. Inside, we have a couple USB-Cs, a wireless phone charger right here. And it's funny because sometimes as I've watched the ES progress, without advertising it anywhere, Lexus has made that phone holder bigger and bigger, obviously to keep up with the trends. I remember when the 2016 RX came out, the phone holder was almost out of style right away because the phones got so big by the time the car came into production. And the ES has done a really good job of future-proofing that. We do have one button above that, and that is the brake hold. If you haven't used brake hold before, when you're in the drive-thru getting your Starbucks and you want to give that brake leg a break, that was a lot of brakes, you can press that button. Even in drive, you could let go and then it won't disengage until you hit the gas pedal again. In the center, we also still see that trend of brushed aluminum, a couple of cup holders, and another little fancy shelf that you can pull out the insert, and that gives you an idea of how big it is. So it's not gigantic. It'd be a good place to put pens or business cards. And there is a little trap door, a little secret trap door here, where inside we have another USB-C and a USB-A, I guess, I don't know, USB-B, I can't remember what this is called. And it's cool because it drops down into the console. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I said console, not council this time. Console, I sometimes say council. Then we have some heated and cooled seats sort of above that. You can set all that to auto, which is what I would do. I always set everything to auto. That means my climate control, my heated seats, my cooled seats, unless I'm getting in my car and I really want it to cool down quickly, then maybe I'll hit, my cooled seat on 3 or my heated seat on 3, depending. But most of the time, I just use the auto feature and then keep it around like the 20 degrees Celsius. Then above that, we have this new Lexus interface screen. It's not the newest one. So this one is about a generation, I would say a half a generation old, where it is a very sharp display. It is that really nice optically bonded glass. It's very quick, super easy to use. And overall, I haven't heard any complaints, and no one seems to miss that touchpad. I guess people are just keeping their fingers a little bit cleaner now, because even hearing about fingerprints and stuff like that, I don't hear too many complaints. But I will give you a pro tip. Most of these Lexuses, and any Lexus in the lineup, when they get delivered to their guest, to their new owner, there's actually a screen protector on the screen that almost no dealership takes off. And in fact, we're encouraged not to take it off. And you'll notice if you ever see any micro scratches, probably there is a plastic cover on that screen still. And how you can tell is just in the bottom corner. You just kind of get your finger in there and then you can sort of peel it off. I'm not gonna do it to this one because no one has bought this one yet, but it is there. On that screen, we can see our Apple CarPlay, our Android Auto. There is a little bit of customization and you can see a few other bits of info, but nothing mind-blowing. It's not big of a distraction. Something that I always loved when this ES came out was the driver and control concept. And what that is the bond between a rider and his horse is the same as a driver and his car. And because of that, we can reach our sport, normal, and eco modes without taking our hands or eyes off of what we should be looking at, which is the road in front of us. So as you're driving, you can easily use your peripherals to change the mode you're driving in or turn off your traction control with your other hand without having to look down at a center console or anything like that. On the center, we just have our regular dash setup. It is electronic, so this actually is more like the sport model where it is all electronic. There's some customizable gauge cluster features in there, as well as some safety features, your lane departure alert, your lane centering, your radar cruise control, your pre-collision system. Lexus includes that in all cars. You don't have to pay extra for it because it's for safety. So all that you can access from your steering wheel controls without having to look too far. And it's the classic steering wheel controls. So they're physical buttons. You can push them in. You have a little bit of dexterity to figure out which button does which. Okay, so speaking about physical buttons, there really is no shortage of them on the steering wheel or on the dash. So on the steering wheel, we have volume up and volume down. We have the push to talk button, where if you hold it, you can also use things like Siri's iFree. Then we have this little back button that also will show different menu layers and stuff like that. And then to navigate those menu layers, you're gonna use the 4 arrows to the left of that. Now, sometimes these features aren't turned on in terms of safety, so it's always good to just check once in a while over on the gear symbol. But for the most part, you're just gonna use that to navigate and set up sort of your display on that left side. Then we have a little talk button, or it's not a talk button, it's like a call button. So if you press that, it goes to your phone's home screen, or if someone calls you, you can answer it like that, etc. Then on the right side, so this is very classic. We have our last generation of cruise control. So you just sort of hit that top right corner, that turns on your cruise control, then you hit set and resume, and that's how you can go up and down for cruise control speeds. Then you can just hit cancel to get rid of it. And then the radar part is in the top left. That's a physical button, and that shows you sort of the distance between you and the car in front of you. It's not necessarily car lengths, it's longer than that. Then we have our lane departure or lane centering underneath that, and then our mode for audio, and then tuner. So like if you have your presets or if you want to go next track, that's going to be these two arrows here. Over to the center, there is some more physical buttons, which is great. I just use the auto as I mentioned, but you could go off, you could change your fan speeds, you could change where your heat or cooling is blowing. You could do a quick defrost on the front, the rear, and recirc. And then when you actually use it, you just use the up and down wheels on either side of that. So the driver and passenger for the dual zone. And then we have some shortcut, which is super rare these days, where you can hit radio, hit media, hit seek track, all from that center console. The volume knob, however, is where it's at. And I know that sounds silly, but what I mean by that is we have the volume knob on the outer upper ring of this little dial here, and then the collar itself is the tuner. I wish more cars had a physical tuner wheel like this, because when I'm scrolling stations with this wheel, I could go and check out multiple different stations very quickly without having to think. I'm just using my intuition of my music. Is right there on that dial. Okay, so backseat comfort on the ES, and this is really where the ES outshined my favorite car in the lineup, which is the LS. And what I mean by that is because of this platform was so innovative, there's more legroom in this back seat than there is in that full-size LS. So I'm 6'1", my legs don't even come close to that seat in front of me, and there's not really much of a hump in the center, maybe just a little one for the exhaust. As a passenger in the center, your legs aren't coming up above your neck. It's all sort of really well planted. We do have just a little seat pocket in front of us. We have an armrest that folds down, which is probably how I would just leave it if I wasn't carrying 3 people in the back. I would just always have it like this. It makes it look a lot more executive. And even this armrest is all soft leather with a couple cup holders there. And what I mentioned earlier, there is a pass-through here. Couple USB-Cs sort of just in front of that center, as well as the outlet, 12-volt sort of cigarette lighter type thing. We have a couple vents above that, which you can turn on and off and blow. There isn't any heated seats or anything back here, but that's totally okay. At this price point, I know we had to make some sacrifices, and comfort hasn't been one of them. These seats are still as soft as the front. Even the armrest and door panel still has a little bit of that modern wood grain that I talked about with the open pore. We still have a little bit of brushed aluminum on the door window bezel, the floating door handle. The armrest itself is comfortable. The window, which I always forget to talk about, the window is big enough, but the way it tapers down, it sort of naturally gives you a little bit of privacy as a passenger back here. It's gonna gives you a little bit of that mystique, a little bit of that, you know, mystery of who's in the back seat of that elegant sedan. So if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm a huge fan of the ES350. And in the F design package, it sort of gives you the comfort of a luxury, meaning the suspension and the seats and some of those finishes, but the aggressive styling of the sport, and it's at a lower price. The F design is only a few $1,000s more than the premium package, which is the entry level for the ES350, and probably is the best bang for buck. If I was in the market for a mid-size sedan in the luxury lineup right now, the ES would be the most cost effective without much sacrifice, because it's cheap to run because of that regular gas front wheel drive. It has lots of power, the maintenance is great, it's super reliable and proven in that lineup. And the F design sort of blends those two worlds of sport and luxury into one. I'm Dustin Mason, thank you for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the ES350, if you would buy one, what you think of the color, if there's any other cars I should review, and I'll see you in the next video. The other day, I realized something. I realized what a historic time we have right now in the automotive industry. And that mainly comes from the diversity of options of vehicle powertrains that consumers have today. And none more important than the choice between hybrid and gas models. And Lexus has really grown to fame with having a great option of both. So in today's video, I'm going to compare the ES350 V6 front-wheel drive model versus the ES300H to see which one comes out on top between hybrid and gas. And I already know the answer to a few of the tests I'm gonna be doing, and I do think that both have very big strengths, so it's gonna come down to what's better for you. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. So I want to spend most of this video driving, but before I wanted to do a proper introduction into the two cars that we're going to be driving today. Now keep in mind, the ES has been a staple in the Lexus lineup pretty much since launch, since it was the second car they released right after the LS. This car has really evolved over the years, where being a really subtle executive sedan into something sporty like the ES350 F-Sport design beside me. And that's why I think it's so important to really hone down on which version of this car is right for you. So we have the ES350 front-wheel drive V6, which is the F-Sport design. I felt like that was very fitting for today's comparison. And also the classic beige on beige ES300H in an ultra luxury fashion. So that's the fully loaded executive kind of style of the sedan. And both of them are going to check different boxes. So instead of wasting any more time, let's just get into the drive. I'm just starting to get into the car and I already realized I messed up the package. I don't know why I said F-Sport design. This is the Blackline edition, which is like another special edition for this year, but it's like the fully loaded special edition instead of the F-Sport design is like more of like an entry-level special edition. And this one's way more fully loaded. I love there's some details that are new, and I'm super into that. But otherwise, it's the ES interior that I know and love. This car got redesigned in 2018, I think was for the first time. Sorry, for the 2019 model year. And we literally saw LS sales go down because of this became such a good car for half the price, especially with the introduction of like F-Sport variants and now F design and Blackline edition variants. That made the car, even better. I also like, as we just start to drive, I also like that there's buttons. This is like one of the last cars to have a physical button for things like cooled seats, heated steering wheel, heated seats. Even the climate stuff are all physical buttons, which is kind of nice. We do have heads-up display and panel view monitor, which is quite nice. I like that. Actually, as I'm sitting here, I know a couple guests of mine that would love this car. It does have the Mark Levinson sound system. So where you're at now with the ES is you're not sacrificing anything to go to a model like Blackline or F-Sport Series 2, where you used to miss out on a few things, and not anymore. I'm excited for the power. It's been a while since I've driven this V6. This is the same V6 that we used to have in things like the RX. It's actually not the same configuration as like the IS, because we're hooked up to those front wheels, so it feels different when you punch it. And it is over 300 horsepower, I think it's like 305. I also love the aluminum trim. There's like this katana trim around it, and it's supposed to look like a sharpened katana blade. So like you almost see brush strokes in it. You don't get that these days with a lot of new cars. I mean that even in our lineup. It's just those level of details that make the ES really special. And I think people have to see it to appreciate it, because if not, you're just reading it on a brochure. And there's way more to this car than what the brochure says. Okay, so we're getting on the highway. I'm just in normal mode. So far, it's so smooth. All you can really hear is my seats. I'm just gonna punch it. We're just gonna see what happens. Okay. That was from second gear. Really good sound, good linear power. It's been a while since I've driven one of these V6s. It wasn't as punchy as I thought from a roll, but I'm gonna put it in sport mode now. You can hear a lot more of that. It's not simulated, but it is piped in intake noises. You hear way more of that in sport mode. It also has Sport Plus. So the difference between Sport Mode and Sport Plus in this car is Sport Mode is going to tune that throttle response and of course the shifts and things like that. And then Sport Plus is going to do that same thing, but add the handling. So now we're gonna see tighter handling, and almost right away as soon as I do it, I notice a bit of a difference. And it's super tight, and I kind of forgot how much I like this car. In pretty much this exact configuration. The V6 front wheel drive is special. We do have Lexus Safety Sense, but it's not gonna be the latest one. It's not like the 3.0, I think it's the 2.5 or something. We have the digital LFT display. So this is the LFA inspired one. So you can actually move that gauge over. And that's a nice detail too. Even between Sport and Sport Plus, the gauge cluster changes even one more time. So that gives it, you know, technically we have Eco mode, normal mode, custom mode, Sport and Sport Plus. Oh yeah, Sport Plus is where it's at. I love that extra sound. Love the extra sound that it gives us. The handling is really good. Really the only noise I hear is from the sunroof, and that's just because that shade is open. If I had the shade closed, it's super quiet. Yeah, I love it. Really, really nice. Paddles are good. It's quick. When you use the paddles on this car to shift, it is really, really quick. Oh, also the steering wheel has like a different feel to it. It's got some perforation on the sides where you put your hands. But I just love this powertrain. It's fun. They're redesigning the ES soon, so next year's gonna be a totally different ES. And this is like the last hurrah of the V6 ES. And I saw the numbers for next year's ES, and it is great. Like, it's gonna be great. That's that engine though. You guys, that's crazy. I'm gonna do that again. I think I got it into first gear there. So if I go into first gear and punch it, it's really, really good. This is not your grandfather's ES. I always say that to people. This thing, it's super elegant and super refined. The fit and finish, the metal, the high quality materials, the smoothness of the ride. But then if you want to get rowdy, she can get ready. She can throw down and do it again. Yeah, that shift is quicker than I ever remembered. Using the paddle shifts, it's bam. It's really, really quick. I would say even comparative to things like the RC that I just reviewed, the IS, this ES Blackline Edition in particular might have the quickest shifting paddle shifters. And I don't mean just the number changing. I mean the actual shift feeling is really, really good. I'm super happy about that. It is busy. It's summertime here in Niagara. You can tell. You can tell because there's stuff happening all the time. Everywhere you go. There's like festivals and stuff like that. I actually knew there was gonna be a festival up here, and I still decided to take this way, which is silly. I can actually smell a little bit of rubber burning too. Okay, so some specs about the ES350. Not size or anything like that, but fuel consumption is going to be different than the hybrid for sure. So any of the F-Sport packages, so F-Sport 2, the Blackline, or F-Performance, is all going to be 10.9. So that gear ratio is probably what we're feeling there. That's 10.9 in the city. The highway is 7.5, and also combined is gonna be 9.4. So technically, I'm driving the worst, the worst in fuel of all the ESs. Now, it wasn't a big deal years ago. Like anything sub 10, you'd be like, that's good fuel economy, especially the fact that it takes regular gas. I think that's amazing. Although with this much horsepower, I'd probably put premium in, just saying. Nowadays, like we have SUVs that average in the 8 and the 9s. So, you know, it might be a little out of date there. Horsepower, we're 302. I thought it was 305. And the torque is 267. And you can feel both of those. We're just gonna loop around here. It's always wild trying to film these types of videos in busy times, which is why we stay out of Niagara Falls, because tourist area. Usually St. Catharines isn't too bad, but I'm pretty happy the community we live in is busy in the summertime. There's lots going on. Not just wineries, but that is a big part of the festivals around here. So I'm in Sport Plus now. We're gonna do a little bit of another pull. But yeah, I don't see how I'm gonna like the hybrid more than this. I know I'm really biased, but I work at a dealership and I drive cars every day. The ES is just it. This is such a great car. Also, this is one of the first cars to have the double armrest that opens both sides. We got a wireless charger now. It is updated because we don't have the mouse pad anymore. We have the newest interface. Yeah, we're gonna push it. We're gonna do paddles, because why not? 3, 2, 1. So good. It's so good. And then if we wanted to just go into normal mode, quiets things down, that engine gets quieted because, you know what, I actually kind of like the sound. I've said this before in other videos. I think I like the sound more in normal mode because it's less high pitch. It's actually a little more grunty. And I'm pretty sure I've heard people put exhaust on these cars. I'm always on the fence about it, but it probably sounds really, really good in person. I've only ever seen it in videos. Same with my LS. I always think, should I put an exhaust on it? I know that V8 can really sound great, but then at the same time, We're in the executive or elegant sedan, as some call it, and it's just polished, it's just smooth. I don't even feel the road right now. And this is with an F car, right? The Blackline edition is an F car still. F-Sport or F, design, however you want to call it. But the new ES is coming out. I do think it's gonna be faster because the technology has just gotten there with hybrids, with EVs, stuff like that. I always wonder if they're gonna make an ESF, like how we had the RCF, the GSF, all that. That could compete with things like the M5, for instance. Or I guess maybe with the introduction of like an ES500, that could be up there too. And this transmission has come such a long way. When it first came out, I remember the shifts, would feel different. Like you would notice them because it was like the first time having an 8-speed in this car. And now, flawless. In my opinion, the ES is an over-engineered car. I sometimes, only for instances like this, I sometimes miss the navigation being built in. Even though if this was my car, my phone would be paired and I would have Waze on or Google Maps or something. But on a test drive like this, where there's a road closure, just being able to glance down is nice. But again, that's just because I'm on a test drive vehicle. If this was actually my demo, which maybe it will be after this video because I am in love with it, you would have something paired. And people ask me that too. Oh, I just realized something I need to talk about. It still has a clock. We still have like a true Lexus clock here. I still have some plastic on the car. And the backing of the Lexus clock is like the F-Sport grille. It's really modern, I really like it. Okay, so this is the ES350. Let's wrap it up and hop into the ES300H and do a comparison of the drive. So now we are in the ES300H. So to give you guys some specs, we have 215 horsepower. So it is gonna be less. It's the 2.5 4-cylinder front-wheel drive. However, the fuel economy specs, I'm gonna just round it to half. So we got, in the city, 5.5 liters per 100. On the highway, 5.2, and combined, 5.3. So if someone is conscious about fuel, this is the car to do. I love that I'm doing a beige on beige, although I will say the exterior beige is not the old school one. This is the moonbeam, is what I call it, moonbeam beige. I always have to accentuate the end, moon, because I used to say moonbeam beige. And there is way more character to this color than there used to be. I find it's got a lot of texture to it. It's got a lot of metallic, way more silver champagne-y than the classic sandy beige. And I think it pairs well with this light interior. I find light interiors are in right now. We see a lot of people doing it. It brightens up the cabin. It shows you some more layers to the cabin, like the wood grain and how different it is. We still have Sport, Normal, and Eco, but I'm just gonna leave it in Normal. And we're gonna get on the highway. You can hear the CVT a little bit more than the other one. Okay, punch. It's not bad. It's not bad. I would say high end, at the higher end speeds or the higher end revs is gonna feel like it's lacking compared to that 350. But as a car, as a consumer, this isn't bad. Also, fun fact about the ES Hybrid, when they designed this car for 2019, so the Ultra Luxury, the fully loaded, has wheels that are have some sound deadening to them. So they have this extra chamber. If you hit a bump, that tutum that you normally hear actually isn't there. And what they found was this car became so smooth that the original test drivers of it became actually a little bit nauseous when driving it. And this is before EVs really became what they are today. But this was so smooth that they had to incorporate a little bit of feeling of the road because it made people a little bit car sick, which I think is hilarious. Maybe it was for passengers or something, I don't know. But I feel a bit of vibration in the pedal, and that's the CVT, that's the shifting, right? Everywhere we go tonight is closed, by the way, which is hilarious. So you do feel that a little bit at the higher revs. It's not the end of the world. It's super smooth. I don't think it's lacking power at all. I'm going through a construction zone, so you can hear a little bit of the road noise a little bit more than normal. But for someone that is more conscious about fuel economy, this hybrid for sure is the way to go. In return, in the city, you're gonna get a little bit smoother as well. Your start-stop, I always find that with hybrids, and whenever I have a hybrid as a demo, I always say that the unexpected benefit is actually the fact that when I pull out of my driveway and go to put it in gear, it's like the power is ready to go. Like, you don't have to wind up this internal combustion engine. It's just the electric motor is just like, okay, you wanna go? Let's go. It's effortless is what I call it. So from a stop or in a city, the hybrid is effortless. Once you're going already, once you're already rolling, that gas 350 is just special, I find. It's just, it is so punchy, and I really like it. And I should probably mention, at this point, the ES350 is like almost, like we don't sell many of those. I don't think Lexus orders a ton of them. The ES350 all-wheel drive was supposed to be a 4-cylinder all-wheel drive option for people. If they didn't want the V6, or for the same price as the V6, you lose a bit of horsepower, but you gain the all-wheel drive capability. You know, we had some takers for sure, but for the most part, we just sold the V6 or the hybrid. And there was a time that this hybrid was so in demand, it was like a 6-month wait. And that was during a time that like no one had to wait for cars, like back in, you know, 2019 or whatever it was. So that's how high demand these were. I don't know why. Like, for instance, I have this car in stock right now for sale. And, you know, there was a time where that was never the case, where now it's more similar to just like the regular ES350. And it could be because so many people are going SUVs now. I'm guilty that like, whenever I get a chance, I will use an SUV as my demo. But then I drive a sedan like this, and I'm like, yo, sedans are still special. Like, for someone who just needs to commute or drive their family around, even if it's 80% of the time, a sedan like this really checks all the boxes. Yes, some people say, well, what about when I go up to the cottage in the summer and I want to bring my surfboards and stuff like that? But I had a really good guest, Adam, tell me one time. He said, you need to buy the car that you're going to use for 70% of the time. And then for the other 30%, just rent. So if you need an SUV 30% of the time, just rent an SUV for that road trip. And realistically, if it's just once a year, it's gonna be like, that's technically like 5% of the time. That's not even a big deal. So keep that in mind as you're shopping. This, for an everyday commuter, you can't get any better. And that's why you see so many airport limousine services, any commuter taxis or anything like that, they always use the ES hybrid because it's smooth, it's super reliable, it lasts a long time. The highest kilometer one I saw was like 800,000 kilometers, and they're low maintenance, right? Also, I noticed, and I should have talked about the braking on the ES350. The ES300H braking, like the regenerative braking, isn't bad. Some cars, you really feel it. Like I really feel it in like the UX, or sometimes even an NXRX. In this, it just feels like normal brakes. It doesn't surprise you at all. Okay, so we have some open pore wood grain in this package since we're, you know, more of that luxury, ultra luxury feel. We don't have the pano roof in the hybrid. That's important to note, that the gas version of this car has a pano roof, but I think it adds the spoiler. I'm looking in my mirror to see if there's a spoiler back there. I think there is. Same buttons and screen as that F-Sport 350. And that's why for the most part, oh, here's from a stop. From a stop, just so smooth. It's just a whisper. I'm going 20 kilometers an hour, still just an EV. The gas engine's not even on right now. Up to 35, 40 kilometers an hour. Someone's behind me though. No gas engine. This is all just electric. Now that gas engine came on, but I'm gonna tell you this right now, and this is super important. You barely notice the gas engine turning on this versus even the RX hybrid. And I don't know why. And people are gonna be like, you need to know everything. I don't know, because the RX is newer. There should be less of that, but on the ES, you don't get that big shake or that big sound that the RX and NX do. And I've spent a lot of time in those cars lately. Back to EV, we're just in EV mode. Oh, it's so smooth. Now it kicks on, barely notice. That's crazy. I forgot that this car was this smooth. And that's not even in eco mode. We've just been in normal mode this whole time. Does sport mode give you more power? Let's just check. Yeah. I would say you get a little bit of oomph. It's actually pretty usable. Like, again, as a car, as like your everyday commuter car, this is great. This is really good enough anyway. It's not, you know, going up against a 5 Series BMW with 450 horsepower, but it doesn't need to. That's not what this car is. It's just elegant. It's the elegant sedan. Oh, also because it's the ultra luxury, you get like the curtains in the back, which I always think are just so cool. You get the one that you could press here, and it's like the rear windshield. That is clutch, especially at nighttime, because when headlights are behind you, and like it blinds you kind of. You can just cut that with those. Especially if you live in an area that doesn't allow tinted windows, you can just throw that up and it's good. We have like the beige headliner to match that interior. Oh, no way. I see a lifted GX on the road right now. That's a treat. We don't see that very often around here. Lifted with the roof rack. It's from the States for sure. Love my American friends that have all the souped up off-road cars. Here it is. That's so cool. Hi, Lexus friend. From Wisconsin. Nice. And it's like the old GX 460 too, which is cool. Okay, so I think that's enough of the ES300H. Let's wrap things up. Well, I really hope that you guys don't hate me for being so obvious. But here's my conclusion. If you want fuel economy and don't mind a little bit lacking in power, but still enough oomph to get up and go, the ES300H is going to be the car that will bring you smiles and save you thousands of dollars over its lifetime. However, please don't underestimate the ES350, especially in any of the F-Sport variants, with how it is still super, super smooth. You're not sacrificing any of that. You still have all the features of any of the ultra luxuries or luxuries. And that driving experience is so fun. Like being able to punch it in a corner in first gear and light up those tires and be able to still like handle and have fun with it. The ES350 is still such a gem and joy to drive in this class of vehicle. And I just hope everybody watching this video can be reminded of how nice a luxury sedan can still be, even in 2025, which is like the year of the small and mid-size SUV. These two cars behind me still check so many different boxes. And we know that for 2026, we're gonna see a huge redesign to these two cars. And you know, based on the styling, it's so radically different that a little bit of timeless design like these two behind me is definitely the way to go. So let me know in the comments what you think. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you like and subscribe for more Lexus related content, and let me know in the comments which one of these you would have chose, the ES350 or the ES300H. And if you have any other ideas for videos, feel free to reach me on my Instagram, @DustinMason. Let's check out the ES350. But before we do that, make sure you hit subscribe and like on this video and leave a comment at any time if you have any questions. I will try to get to all those comments at some point. Okay, so let's check out the 2023 ES350. And the one behind me here is the F-Sport design. This is a new package to the ES lineup. Kind of a cool package because it's not a base model and it's not a fully loaded. It's actually one step above the premium package. So it gives you the styling of an F-Sport, but you know, not the big price tag and not some of the features that you might not care about. So let's look at some of the design language. So on the front, we have that massive F-Sport spindle grille. Very aggressive. It's a very wide and tall car. So that front end does have some substance to it. We also have a single LED high beam, low beam setup. So it's not the triple beam like you see in the F-Sport Series 2, but it still, you know, has the auto high beam feature and stuff like that with a daytime running lamp underneath it. And that looks really gorgeous when it's lit up. The bumper itself is very similar to the Sport bumper. So we have, you know, a little bit of spindle grille also to the sides. We have parking sensors and it's smoked out chrome. So instead of being, you know, the normal bright chrome, it's the smoked out one, which I love. I love when brands do a blacked out chrome look or a smoked out chrome look. Probably it's a little harder to keep clean, but I do think it looks really modern and I love it. Other than that, we have some cool body lines that are hard to see on the white and black versions of this car, but we see some body lines kind of carry itself up to the hood. There's a really nice angle here that lines up perfectly with that chrome. And then there's also a little bit of lines here so the driver can see kind of where the hood is, but not super, you know, aggressive, I guess you could say. As we look at the side profile, so the side profile of the ES to me has always been sort of elegant and sophisticated because the E in ES is supposed to be, you know, executive sedan or elegant sedan, you know, as they say. So on this F design package, we have black gloss wheel. We also have blacked out tops to the mirrors, and really interesting, and I didn't notice that until I pulled this car into the showroom today, is this logo is very similar to like the F Performance logo that we saw on things like the IS500 or the RX500. So that was really cool to see on this. It's a new take on the logo, which, you know, I don't know what that means for the ES in the future, but maybe there's some exciting things coming down the pipeline. On the side, we do have an interesting choice here. The chrome is not the blacked out chrome. So I don't know why Lexus decided to separate that from the front grille, but it is just the regular chrome. And, you know, as you zoom out and look at the ES bodyline, you can see how long of a car this is. That roof line sort of slowly tapers off to the bottom. There's no real drop off point, and that's because of that back seat is so big and the back door is so big. There is a huge door here for those rear passengers. The design language, as far as body lines goes, on the white, again, it's hard to see, but there are, you know, some other interesting lines. One here that lines up with the handles and flows to the back, but not super aggressive. It's more stylish and flowy than anything else. So, you know, that's something to take a look at when looking at the ES. Now, if we look at the rear of the car, so we have a few things back here. One is the taillights, which I'll turn on for you, remind me of the GS or LS 500 and GS350. So a little bit more layered to it, a little bit separated from each other. Also, maybe even a little bit of LC 500 in there. And what I mean by that is the layers, the way that they sort of overlap a little bit, is kind of like those afterburner taillights in the LC, but you know, the LC has a little bit more depth and character to them. But back here, we have the spoiler on this one. And again, that trunk kind of just flows down. It's not a huge trunk, it is angled, so it's nothing to really write home about. But at the bottom of that bumper, we have a blacked out rear diffuser and integrated exhaust tips that are also surrounded in chrome. Again, interesting choice from Lexus because the chrome on the trunk is blacked out. So not sure why they did that. Speaking of the trunk, it is massive. There's a lot of stuff in here because this car hasn't been PDI'd yet, but it is huge back here. You could fit at least 2 golf bags, you know, and there is a pass-through, meaning the seats don't fold down. And the reason a lot of brands do that is on these more executive sedans or luxury sedans, it's better for road noise, from what I hear. This is what an engineer told me one time, is those folding rear seats, there's a little bit less sound dampening and seal to them. So this will make it so those backseat passengers don't have as much road noise back there, which, you know, when someone told me that, I was like, I believe that, that makes sense. But really good depth here, and also the width of it kind of doesn't get much narrower as it goes deep, which a lot of cars that are all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive have way less space back here, but this is pretty good. So that is a plus when you're looking at the ES for sure. Okay, so the inside of the ES, if you weren't blown away by the exterior, you still will be blown away by the interior. It's absolutely massive in here. The layout is so classy, so elegant, well spaced out, what I noticed. So one of the trim pieces in this F design that I noticed is it's like a brushed aluminum, all sort of accented around the cabin, on the bezels around the window switches, also on the front panels of the dashboard in the center here. It's super classy. I really like that. It's very young, you know, having brushed aluminum that's black. I think that's, you know, a very newer accent in cars. It looks really good, probably, you know, easy to keep clean, I would imagine, and just a really nice touch, Lexus. Good job. As for the rest of the interior, we have the Palomino light brown interior, complemented by some really nice wood paneling that's also brown. So we see that at the top of the door panels, integrated into the dash on the steering wheel, and that creates a really nice contrast. It doesn't match perfectly in terms of the color. It's a little bit darker, a little bit warmer, but it still shows that it's a luxury sedan and it's not too sporty, because usually on a sport model Lexus, you get rid of all the wood and it's usually just aluminum. And there is still aluminum in here. We have real aluminum trim on both the door panels as well as the dashboard. I'm pretty sure that feels aluminum. The door panels definitely does. And you know, that's a little bit of that sport design in it. In the center here, a lot has changed since the last couple of years. We now don't have the mouse pad. There's no mouse pad here. It's all touchscreen with the new Lexus interface. But what we do have is a massive wireless charger. And it's very smart that it's so big and that it doesn't have a big frame around it, because what I noticed 5-6 years ago with wireless chargers is they were designed for a phone that was small, and then phones kept getting bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden your car was outdated. And this one seems a little more future-proof because there's less, walls around it. Center armrest is very big and it opens from both sides, just like the LS, RX, and NX. So that's really good. There's some there's some USB-Cs in the center. So that's always good for charging your phone. And Lexus got rid of the small phone holder and made it a bigger gap up here. So it looks like it doesn't matter what phone you have for the next 20 years, it'll fit there because it's just this big, opening, and it's got a little fake bottom that you can take out and clean, which is nice. Above that, we have some heated and cooling seats. We have the screen at the top, and like I said, it is updated. We don't have the mouse pad anymore, so it's all touch, super HD. It's very nicely put towards you and very easy to use with all the latest Lexus technology. To the left of that, we have a little clock still, which is cool. So that's their digital display on everything else, all the new buttons that we've seen in the Lexus lineup with cruise control and everything on the steering wheel, and overall just a great space, very comfortable. This is definitely the type of interior you could drive for a long time and not get too tired, that's for sure. So I'm 6'1", and the backseat of the ES feels right at home for me. I have a ton of space, lots of headroom, lots of legroom, and even sitting back here, I can tell how big and sturdy and the frame of these front seats are because there's so much cabin space here, so Lexus didn't have to shrink down the seats, and that's why this car is so comfortable. Also back here, we have some really nice appointments, still some wood trim, couple USB-Cs in the center, a big armrest, again, super solid, couple cup holders in there, that little pass-through, but a super quiet cabin back here, perforated leather, and just overall a great space. I could definitely have, 2 other people back here, no problem at all, and be comfortable. In fact, in 2019, when this car got redesigned and launched, the back seat space is bigger than the newest LS 500. And that's like the luxury big sedan. And, a lot of that is legroom. We have tons here. There's not a big hump in the middle. So definitely great for anybody that has, kids or just likes to drive friends around. So how does the ES350 drive? Well, it's super smooth, very quiet on the highway. It has a 300 horsepower engine V6 that takes regular gas. It's made it to an 8-speed transmission that hooks up really well and keeps that fuel economy really amazing on the highway. It's a fast mid-size sedan. It is front-wheel drive, but I don't really care. I think it's still a great vehicle to drive, even in Canada. Get some snow tires, maybe if you're worried a little bit about the snow. But overall, it's slightly athletic, it's super luxurious, and just an overall great build of a car, especially for the price. So that's my take on the ES350 and especially the F-Sport design package. Thank you for watching. I'm Dustin Mason at Performance Lexus in St. Catharines, and don't forget, we're a real dealership. So if you're interested in this car, taking it for a spin, or anything else in the Lexus lineup, feel free to reach out or come on down to St. Catharines and check us out. And remember to subscribe, hit like, write me a comment, and let us know if there's any other videos you want me to do in the future. Today, I'm gonna go over every button and function on the ES350 while using my new toy, the InstaFlow. The previous videos did so well when I did this on the RX as well as the NX. And no, this isn't me just trying to justify to my boss the purchase of the InstaFlow. I do really like this, but we'll get into it. A lot of people in the comments wanted me to do other cars like the ES and some of our other SUVs, so more to come. Let me know in the comments below which ones I should do next. Okay, so the one we're looking at today is the ES350 Sport design. I've done some other videos on this, so I think it suits going over every button and function and probably some other little extras and things like that. I'm sure I'll miss something and I'll probably talk too much, but that's okay. So the first thing that I always forget about is the key. So taking a look at the key, it is the newer designed. Some of our keys are still a little bit bulky. This one's pretty sleek. It's got a little bit of a curvature on one side. Actually, both sides have curvature, but one is actually aluminum, which is kind of nice. Lock, unlock, trunk, and the panic button. Now, on most of our cars, I noticed the panic button has a better range than the lock and unlock. And on the back, we just have the Lexus emblem, and it fits in your pocket quite nicely. So when we hit the unlock, you can hear that very pleasant beep, and it also lights up things like the mirrors, as well as the daytime running lights turn on, the signals turn on, stuff like that. But I'm just gonna pop the hood and we'll start under the hood. Just sort of line ourselves up here. We're gonna go pretty much right in line with the Lexus emblem itself. And like most Lexuses, it's on dampers. So you can just sort of prop it open. You don't need to use a prop rod or anything like that. Those days are over for most of our cars. And underneath the hood, we have our beautiful V6. And on the ES, it's sort of a mixture between covered over and not covered over. So we have this plastic cover that's just sort of clicked in there, but then we can still see a lot of the elements and stuff like that. But there really isn't a whole lot to go over under here because there's not a lot of buttons and functions you should be pressing underneath the hood, I'm sure. But I did want to show you how to open it. And probably you should also know that your washer fluid is off to the left. So that is your washer fluid. Don't get it confused with the coolant, which is right behind there. That one's got the hose on the top. Don't put windshield washer fluid in your coolant, but you could put your windshield washer fluid in the proper spot. And it's pretty easy to get to the battery if you ever had to boost it. We have trickle chargers on ours in the showroom. That's what you see, some extra wires and stuff there, but that's pretty much all you're gonna really wanna look at in there. On the front, there really isn't any buttons or functions. Just make sure that you keep your parking sensors clear of snow and debris if you live in Canada. And I will show you now that I'm in front of the car again, that function of the daytime running lights turning on. So I know it's really bright in here right now, but you can still kind of see it, I think. Looking to the side of the car, in terms of buttons and functions, it's mostly the interior, but I will show you how the door handles work. When you walk up to them, it is the classic door handle mechanical. It's not the new electronic one. You can hit lock by pressing that little dimple right there, and then unlock by just putting your finger inside the handle. And I will show you, my favorite setting is that when it's locked, I have those mirrors folded in. And the reason is, well, it kind of looks cool with the mirrors folded in, but also when it's in my driveway, and I can't remember if I could lock my car, it's nice to be able to just look and see the mirrors folded in. And then that way I'm always just kind of used to what it looks like when it's locked. The rear door is the same as the front. We also have our little gas door here. It's not one of the ones that you can just press on. Instead, you have to go into the driver's side footwell. And when you press that, it opens up. And then once you're in there, gas cap. Ooh, this one doesn't even say any sticker, which means it takes regular gas, in Canada at least. And you can rest that gas cap there. I guess that's the best spot for it. Some of them fit a little bit better than that, but at least it gets it out of the way. And then, of course, I always do, make sure it clicks, and then it's locked. Then we have the back of the ES, which I just want to show you the taillights by pressing that unlock again. And you can see that is where your rear view camera is. It's right underneath the Lexus emblem. Now, the trigger to open this is off to the right. So you can see it's sort of, if you were to line up with the ES350, it's just over and up, and that's where it is. And it's very light. It's a very light trunk. And on the inside of the trunk, you can see it has the emergency exit. So that's when you're a kid and you're playing in your parents' trunk and you get stuck in there because you're waiting for them to come out and scare them. That's how you get out, and it goes in the dark. So usually you can see it from in there. Trust me, I've done it. Maybe we'll do a video of it, I doubt it. But anyway, in here, we just have some hooks and things like that for the netting. So the net is already usually attached to the bottom. And what you do is you just unzip it, and then you can fold it out, and then you just kind of like hook to one side and then to the other side. And then now you have a net to put things in. With a trunk this size, which is pretty decently sized, if you have small items, they're always moving around. And then we have the summer mats because we always install winter mats on all of our cars here. And then we have a pass-through that you can see a little bit further there. Underneath the carpet is how you get at the spare tire. So you move the carpet around, and then you just lift on the little area that says lift, and underneath there is the full-size spare tire and a little bit of space for like the tools and stuff. And because of the tools being underneath there, that's why the trunk space is so big. Like there's these cavities off to the sides because of that. And if you ever needed to get in your gas cap but you had a dead battery because you ran out of gas. There is a little area in here. You can see that little, it's like a little plastic cover. That unscrews and you can reach in there and pull like a lever to open up your gas door. So just in case you wondered, that's how you do it, okay? Now into the interior, because we're gonna have a lot more buttons and functions, even just getting into it. So I already showed you how to open the car, but while we're standing here, let's look at some other buttons. So on the beautiful door panel, we have 1, 2, and 3 for the memory seats, and then the set. So I always do them together where I like press set with one finger and then press number 1 with the other. You'll hear a beep and that will lock your seat, your mirrors, and your steering wheel all in the place that you have. And then you do it for number 2 and number 3 for different settings. And then that way they're all programmed. Then we have our window switch. So the driver window has a little dimple there. So you can just kind of feel with, you know, muscle memory, which one is which. And then it does a half click to roll, and then the double click to just have that window come all the way down. All 4 do that. So it's a premium vehicle, that's a premium feature. All 4 go all the way down just with that double touch. It's actually called a 5-way switch. Then we have the lockout buttons for all the doors to be able to roll up and down their windows, unlock and lock. And then we have our mirror switch. So in auto, so in the middle, it's like a rocker switch. So over to the right would fold in those mirrors. Over to the left would keep the mirrors out. And then auto is when it folds them in when you lock it. So dusty advice is to put it in that one, because that's what I like to do. Then we have our little joystick to adjust the mirrors, and then left and right. And you can have your tilt down set up that way too. So when you're in reverse, you can set like a second position for those mirrors. And then that way when you put it in reverse the next time, they'll automatically tilt down, which is really good for like not hitting curbs and stuff like that. That's another thing that I do. Let's go over to the seat. So on this particular package, these are the switches. So we have forward and backward for the seat, for the driver, then up, but we can also twist this. And I don't know if you can see it on camera, but I can twist the seat to really sort of like angle and do a few different things. And then we have just backrest. So you just sort of like touch these buttons to be, you know, the direction that you want the seat. And then just like a basic lumbar on this particular package. While I'm down here, I'll show you, we have this little doohickey, which opens up a little change area. A little bit of an old school Lexus feature, but it's still there. We already showed you the gas door, and then we have a trunk button, and I already showed you the hood button. Okay, so now that we're in here, I'm gonna try to get this whole shot, which is a little bit tricky because it's a little tight, but that's okay. So to the left of the steering wheel, so just sort of off to the side here, we have our lights. So daytime running lights or parking lights, headlights on or auto, which is the one all the way to the bottom. So the auto is technically also the off. They're the same on this. So keep it in auto. So right here is the auto high beams. So you would push these out and leave them out and then press that and it'll light up and actually tell you that auto high beams is on. Then we have signal down is left, signal up is right, depending where you live, I guess. The thing about the ES, it's a little bit older of a design, and some of the buttons are a little hard to get to. So we have odometer and trip, and then our dimmer. So the dimmer left and right. A little bit tricky to get to. You're probably not gonna do that a whole lot, but it's there. We do have our vents off to the left, and I will say, the vent dial to the left, it's really good quality. It's kind of like a soft rubber to be able to close and open the vents, and then you can change the direction of the vents. The little start-stop button, if your foot's on the brake, it's flashing the same tempo as a heartbeat. So it's like do-doom, do-doom, do-doom. And that is supposed to be a homage to the exhilarating driving experience you're about to have. I'm not gonna turn it all the way on, I just wanna turn the accessory on to show you a few of these things. Up to the left, while we wait for that to start, is the traction control off. It looks like it's a twisty. It's not a twisty, it's a button on the side. So you just sort of press that, that turns traction control off. You'd only ever really need to do that if you're stuck somewhere and you need all the power going to your wheels, like probably in the snow or something like that. Then to the right, we have sport, normal, and eco. So to use that, those are our different drive modes. So twist up for sport, press for normal, and then down is for eco. And the reason that that is there, and this started with the ES redesign in 2019. It's called the driver in command or driver in control. If a driver is driving, as drivers do, you can switch your drive modes by just reaching and not having to take your eyes off the road. Where a lot of times they're kind of like down in the center here, and then you kind of like look down, where with this one, it's like right in your driver view, which is really nice. Okay, the steering wheel controls, this is the OG. This is the old school steering wheel controls. Some people love these still. I like the new ones because I got used to them, but I don't hate these ones either. I like them both. Who am I saying? I'm optimistic. I like everybody. So to the left, we have volume up and down. And then we have a little talk button. If you hold it, you can do like Siri's iFree and stuff like that. Then we have a talk switch, or sorry, a phone switch. If your phone's paired, it'll just get you to the phone screen of the big multimedia display. And then we have this little back button. And I actually just used it a second ago because it was showing me a message that my door's open and I wanted to exit out of that. Actually, I'll show you right now. Look, ta-da. So that's how you exit out of that. And then we have up, down, left, and right. And all those are really for is that screen sort of like off to the left there. You can see there's like little columns. So if I go left, I see audio. If I go left again, I see a compass, and that's where your navigation would show up if we had a navigation on. And then left again is fuel economy, but then if I go up and down now with these buttons, and now under that same column, I have range, I have average speed, I have an eco indicator that tells me when I'm doing a good job driving economically. I have active pressure for the tires, which is cool, and then a blank screen. I don't think this is customizable in this order, but if we go over to the right some more, we'll see like our radar cruise control, our lane departure. If the car needed to yell at us about anything, it would be there. And then we have some settings under that gear. And under the settings, we have things like lane center, which we want to keep on. It's kind of like the lane departure alert, but on steroids. So it really keeps you in the center of your lane, even if there's a curve. We have how the alert is. So I have it set to vibrate instead of yelling at me. Then I have the sensitivity. The radar cruise control, you can press here and change the curve speed reduction. So that's how the car slows down when the radar cruise is on for a curve in the road. Pre-collision system, always leave that guy on, and that's right there, PCS. Blind spot monitoring, you can turn that on. Parking, oh, what does PKSA stand for? Why am I drawing a blank? That's the parking sensors. And you can have the auto braking parking sensors on. Units you can change in this screen, so that's good if you're crossing over the border and you want to go to miles per hour or kilometers per hour, depending where you live. You can change it there. And then we have vehicle settings. This is where you could turn off or on things like rear seat reminder. So this is a big life hack I get asked about all the time. If you leave something in your back seat, like a box of books, and you don't want the car yelling at you about that, you can do that. You can also change like oil maintenance, scheduled maintenance, stuff like that. And then there's also meter settings, which is like, you could actually, you can customize that front screen here a little bit. You can just change like what the drive info tells you. So you could change it from like a bar type. You can change a little bit like how the fuel economy shows, if it's after reset or after fuel, those types of things. There isn't much customization on this one, I will say that. But you can change like the language and stuff there too. So that's really what those left buttons on the steering wheel will go to. The middle button is a horn. That's what it sounds like. On the right, we have mode. So mode actually means, a lot of people think it's drive mode. It's not drive mode. This is audio mode. So now if I press mode, it'll change between AM, FM. It'll go into, if I had my Bluetooth connected, it would go to that. So this is a really good feature once you have all your audio stuff set up that you want. And then left and right would be for your presets. When I go left and right, it'll actually go up and down my list of presets. And if you had Bluetooth connected, this would be like how you get to your next song, previous song, restart, etc., etc. Then we have our cruise control. So top right corner, cruise control is how we activate that. So when I turn that on, it'll now say cruise control is active. And then I can set the distance here in the top left, and it'll show me that there in that left corner. And then lower and raise that speed for that, or cancel. We can just cancel that or obviously press on the brake. Then we have the lane departure on and off. It's kind of funny that there's a button for that because most people just leave it on or off. They don't necessarily like switch between it all the time. And then we have some paddle shifters behind the steering wheel on the right and left side. They're kind of like a plastic. They're not like the magnesium ones like in the LC, but they do a good job. They do the job that is meant to be, I guess. And then we have our wipers. So normal, and then auto is down one, and then down two is just like the regular going back and forth, and then the really fast one. And you can change the speed too. So when I have it in that normal mode, I could change it to be a little bit lower, or in auto, I think this changes like the sensitivity. We're just gonna put it in normal right now. And if I pull it towards me, it'll shoot water all over the windshield or windshield washer fluid, whatever you wanna call it. In the center, being that this is the sport design, we have our wireless charger. It's kind of cool because the ES has changed almost like quietly a little bit over the years in this little general area, because we used to have the mouse pad here. And now with the touchscreen being closer, we don't have the mouse pad anymore. And it's left more room for activities, as I would say. So now we have our wireless charger right here. It's nice and big, so as phones keep getting bigger, your phone should be able to fit there. And then we have our brake hold. So brake hold is a great feature if you're in the drive-thru, or if you're in stop and go traffic and you just want to give your braking leg a little bit of rest without having to take it out of gear. You just press that button and then the car will still stop even in gear. And then when you're ready to go, you just press on the gas and it'll deactivate it. And then we have our cup holders. That is a function, even though it's not a button. I guess these are little buttons. And then we have this little trap door where if we open it, you can see a USB, I think it's called USB-A, and a USB-C, and that's a quick charger, hidden underneath this beautifully crafted trapdoor. And the trapdoor is more than you think, because it doesn't just like angle down, it actually angles down and goes down and then comes back up to be flush. And then we have this little, I think this is the gear release lever in there, but I'm not gonna try it. And then the shifter itself is what we see on like the new GX and stuff like that, where it's like one of my favorite shifters. It's a good height for one, and good materials. And then the actual action of doing it, of activating it, is very ergonomic. So you don't have to apply much pressure, just put it into gear, out of gear, and it's good to go. Before I get up to those features, let's talk about the armrest. So this armrest was one of the first, this in the LS, to have the ability to open it from either side. So you can open it from the left or the right. There's a couple USBs in there. There is the 12-volt cigarette lighter style, and there's a little light too, to be able to see all your knickknacks in there. Not too many layers in there, that's for sure. Then in front of those cup holders, we have all of our seating and heated steering wheel controls. So I like the auto settings. I think the ES does a good job on that, but I usually crank my cooled seat. And interesting enough, the ES cooled seat was one of the first to do the opposite of all the other cool seats, where instead of blowing air at you, it actually sucks the air out. And because of that, it was supposed to be 40% cooler. It makes the leather 40% cooler and a lot quicker. So sometimes people will be like, oh, my cooled seat isn't working. Well, it's because on the ES, it actually sucks it. Then we have our heated seats. Again, you can do 3 settings or auto, and then the heated steering wheel, which you can do auto, 2, or 1 setting. Again, the ES does a really good job of making it so it's not just where you put your hands on the sides. Above that, we have another super underrated feature in the ES, which is the volume knob. Yes, I know you've heard of volume knobs before, but this one is special because the outside, or like the part closest to me, is the volume, and then the collar is the tuning. So I'm one of those guys, I'm always listening to different stations. I have like 7 stations in a row. You can guess in the comments what my favorite genre of music is, that are my favorite satellite radio stations. Even if I find a song I like, I want to see if one of my other favorite songs is playing. So because of that, I'm always like just going through the tuning of like, you know, station 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, and then back. And it's actually quicker to do that than using my buttons on the steering wheel for my presets. So dying breed, the volume knob, most of them are all buttons now, or, you know, automatic ones and stuff like that, but I do like that it's still there. Well, I guess we'll talk about these radio buttons. So radio, media, seek track, and seek track. The seek track ones, I don't think anybody ever uses. That's these 2 here. But the radio and media ones are just quick ways to go from AM to FM to your Bluetooth. But again, we have those here as well, and you can touch the screen for those. So probably that's more for the passenger, I guess. Then we have our climate controls, and you'll see a little detail there. I hope I focus. Where when you go up and down for your climate controls, I usually set it to 21 degrees Celsius, but you can see when the number changes, it's almost like it's an analog, which is cool. Then we have off, fan speed. So when you do the fan speed, it kicks off the auto anyway. So if I had it in auto and then I went to like crank the fan speed, you can see it on the screen there. We can change where the air is going if we're not on auto. So down to my feet and the windshield, to my face, that's all through that button. Then we could just override all that and hit front defrost, and it just cranks all of that air to that front windshield. And then we have a timed rear and mirror heaters, which in Canada is always great. And then we have our recirc. So we can have that recirc set to auto. Like if we were in auto, we can have it set to auto and it'll show that it's also recirculating. And then we have the passenger climate control as well. I'm gonna shut all that off right now, even though I am a little warm, just so you guys can hear me. Okay, above that we have some more vent open and closers, some gates to the vents, and our four-ways. And it's always important to know where your four-way's on, because you don't need it until you need it, and then you don't know where to go. And there it is right there, just below the screen and above the climate control. Which brings me to the screen. So here is the new screen in the ES. So it was further away for many, many years. Now it's closer and it's touchscreen and it's really quick. But before we get into that, can we just give some appreciation to, we have a clock here still, and I love that. It's got sort of a brushed aluminum look. It captures the light really nicely. It's also backlit, which looks sharp. So this is the screen. I'm in the radio screen right now. So let's just go really quickly to the main screen. So this is what maps would look like if you had cloud-based navigation on, or if your phone was paired and you were using CarPlay and Android Auto. Then we have our music tab, and this is where you're going to want to set up all your presets. So under favorites, that's where your presets are going to go. And if we could go to FM, then we can actually check out all of the FM genres. So if I was in an R&B mood, it'll show me my local stations for R&B. And then vice versa, we could go to AM, we could go to Sirius XM. The favorites, you can combine all of them. So if we went to one of the favorites, it'll show the little heart off to the side. That means it's a favorite, and we can edit the favorites too. So definitely spend the time to edit the favorites. You can add, you can subtract. You can do like 6 pages of them or something like that. So definitely worthwhile. Then we have our phone settings. Most people probably know how to use that. And then our car diagram. So it shows us just some fuel economy, as well as trip history, trip information, stuff like that. And then in settings, we have, you know, our Bluetooth. That's where you're gonna pair your Bluetooth. And there's Wi-Fi and general. You can create like a hotspot with the Wi-Fi. Not a lot of people do that anymore. And then you could also do some customization. So things like unlocking all the doors instead of just the driver door, which I don't recommend. That is not something I recommend. I always think that just for safety, have it so it just unlocks your door. And then you could have like the seat slide and the column tilt. I call it the easy exit. And you could change, like, again, some of the climate settings and stuff like that. So that's pretty much just like a quick lowdown of that screen. It's optically bonded glass. It's pretty high def. So pretty good job there. And then we have me here in the mirror. So this mirror is just the regular one. It's actually tinting right now because of the light that's on this camera. So it auto tints. We have some garage door programmers here, as well as that tint function. I think we can turn it on and off here if I remember correctly. I think I'm not doing it right. But anyway, that's what that does. Above that, we have our map lights. So the ES does a good job. It's kind of like the soft touch one. And that opens your dome. It's very frosted glass. Then we have our map lights, our SOS button, which is behind a little safety door. Oh, you want to make sure this is in. This is like your dome light to auto turn on, and it doesn't come from the factory that way. So you want to make sure that it's on. And then we have our up and down and our open and close for the sunroof, which is just a single pane of sunroof. In here, just our normal mirror. And it's got the halogen style yellow light. That way it doesn't like totally blind you if you happen to look there while driving. And that's pretty much everything from the driver's seat. Okay, so real quick, we'll just do a quick passenger side. Same thing, the seat controls are the same as the other side. The window switch, we just have the single window switch because you're only gonna control one. However, we have a glove box on this side. So in the glove box, usually there is a very skinny supplement manual, so a really quick like reference guide. And there isn't a ton of space for other stuff. Like maybe some people put their ownership and like insurance and stuff in there. I was told not to do that, so I don't keep mine there. we do have a little handle, the holy crap handle, as well as a microphone. I think that's for the noise canceling, but it could be for the Bluetooth as well, because sometimes on Bluetooth you're talking to both the driver and the passenger if you're on a phone call. So that is the passenger. And of course we can open the armrest from this side, and that's what it sort of looks like. And last but not least, the rear seat, which is very spacious on the ES, so we should check out what's back here. I will say a feature for the front seat that you can see from the back seat is this slider for the 3-point harness. You can raise and lower that depending on your height. I'm 6'1", I've never really changed it. I guess I've never really thought about it, but you definitely can do that. On the rear door, we just have the one button for the window up and down. Interesting enough, you can't lock all the doors from back here. I guess cars don't usually have that on the back anyway. Sort of as we're sitting here, you can also see in the center, we have 2 USB-Cs as well as just a little 12 volt. It says 12 volt 120, but what they really mean is it's the cigarette lighter. We have this armrest. So in the armrest, a couple cup holders, pretty solid armrest if I say so myself. And then that just sort of like folds back in to the seat quite nicely. And that's pretty much it back here. I mean, we do have a little bit of a map pocket. They call it, it's small though, like it doesn't hold a lot. This seat is pretty far back for me right now, but we have that, and we have the holy crap handle above us, which also has a hook on it. So you could hang your suit jacket or whatever there. We have our own map lights too. So, oh, they're not the touch though. I just tried to touch them. They're actually manual buttons. So Lexus did cheap out a little bit. You can't touch them, but you can do the buttons, which is probably safer for kids, to be honest. And that is touch, but I have the setting up there on, so I can't change it right now. But pretty much that's it. Okay, so there you have it. Every button and function on the ES350. I hope you like this video. I do recognize there is higher package ES350s that probably have a couple extra buttons and functions, but I wanted to do it on this beautiful blue one I have in the showroom. And a little bit of foreshadowing, I don't know how many more years I can do this model ES350 because we are due for a change, and I'm sure they're gonna change a lot. Anyway, let me know in the comments below if there's any other button and feature videos that you'd like or that you would like me to do. I'm Dustin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines, and I'll see you in the next video.